Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Stelfers for February 13th, the day of liveliness. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of liveliness. We have an image of what appears to be, boom, what could it be? Strawberries, it looks to be, though they're kind of shaped more like raspberries here in the drawing. But I'm led to think they are strawberries on account of the so-called seeds on the outside, or what I guess are called achenes to the biologists there, or the botanists, if you like. Now, does that speak to the day of liveliness? Hey, who's to say? Sometimes we can make a connotation with the title itself, or even the reading as we get into it. But it's not altogether all too important. Oftentimes we can't. So that being said, what is important around here is it's February 13th, and hence somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is February 13th, what's important here is wishing you a happy birthday. So happy birthday, all right? But if this video finds you late, as sometimes happens, you probably got better things to do on your birthday than drop in on YouTube to get a reading for as much. But if that's the case, hey, I just want to say I hope you had a happy birthday. But for everybody else joining us randomly, or more ideally to celebrate, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, and I will, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, let's get it started off right. I like to live up to the namesake here as the DykASSt birthday broadcast, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us a 6 and a 2 for an 8. And so what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, a lot of times as I hear it, the universe or the higher powers that be will often put things in our path to help us recognize our goals and manifest our aspirations. But if we've got the blinders on as we go through life, because a lot of times we're very narrow focused, we kind of got the autopilot on as we get into the world with our errands or just the commute to work. So we may see a lot of things, but maybe we don't lend them much significance or credence as to what they may impart here in our lives. So this is an exercise to get those blinders off and start noticing the things that the universe or the higher powers that be might be putting in our path just for our benefit. And how do we do this? Well, we need some kind of, a sign, I guess, from the universe, but one that we can recognize. So how about something that's mutually agreed upon there, if you like? That's right, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there. But it's probably ideal you get your own set of dice if this is something you want to try doing. And then you get out into the world, I don't know, say some place that's near and dear to your heart, or just some place maybe you haven't explored before, like say the town square. And you get out there and get those blinders off, like I said, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Let's take the visual representational image, for instance, strawberries or raspberries. Maybe as you get out into the world here, get your time values, your directional values established, and as you're going through on your first leg of this journey, maybe you start to see, I don't know, again, some strawberries or some fruit popping up. Though it could be just about anything. So that's why you get to get the blinders off and just start soaking up everything like a sponge. Because here's kind of the thing, that synchronicity. You might not just start seeing the same numbers over and over again. This same little theme type thing might start popping up. But it could be just about anything. It might not be actual fruit. It might happen to be visual representational images of as much. To say advertisements on bus benches or murals or, just in shop windows. Hey, there's another thing. And I know you'd say, oh, it's just coincidence. If you're actually looking for stuff, you're going to see it. Yeah, I think that might be partly true, but you never know, all right? So you just got to be on the lookout for such things, all right? So let's say on the first leg of this journey, maybe you don't see anything of note, just the everyday goings-on of the city around you. Well, stop, collect yourself, kind of look around, take everything in stride. Maybe you just so happen to notice something small, like you happen to be on 8th Avenue. I would take that as a sign you're on the right path, all right? So roll yourself another time value, another directional value, and head on out. Maybe at this point you come to, I don't know, an alleyway at the end of this time limit. Oh, maybe roll yourself a yes or no value as to whether or not to go down the alley. Maybe you roll up an even and you established even as no, so you keep on trucking, all right? So maybe the next circumstance, you find yourself in front of a building here, and maybe it just so happens to have 8 in the address. All right. Hey, you know what? I would say go on in there. See what you see. Maybe it just so happens to be a mom and pop little fruit market. There you go. Hey, lining up with the theme there, all right? But you know what? A lot of these things, it's never the case. So let's say you happen to come into a clock shop of some repute, all right? And you're like, this one's random. I haven't come across any clocks today. Maybe the individual, some old timer behind the desk is like, how can I help you today? And you're like, well, I'm just here on account of synchronicity. And the old timer's probably going to be like, excuse me, thinking you're some nut job off the street? Well, just show them your dice, show them this video, and then I can take that on for you, all right? I can be the nut job. And then the old timer will be like, well, I don't have anything here for you outside of some clock repair. So if you got a clock, I can help you out in those regards. But otherwise, there's the door. You know what? That's fine. Maybe you take it in stride, roll yourself a dice in or outside the shop there, depending upon the read you get on the individual. But maybe no sooner do you step out of the shop and then boom, you run into, say, an old friend from college, maybe someone you haven't seen for years, or from elementary school. Boom, there you go. You know what? If you hadn't stopped in that shop, put those couple minutes in, you might not have run into this individual. But here you go. The universe lined it up for you. Some seeming anomaly, if you like. You guys get to talking. He or she asks you what you're up to. Again, maybe show them this dice, show them this video. They're going to think it's nuts. But hey, you know what? Maybe it turns out it's their birthday too. I often like to bring up this example. Maybe you guys never knew you shared a birthday. Boom, kismet, if you like. And you know what? Maybe they're not doing anything, and so they're apt to join you on the rest of this journey. All right, you can start trading, stories about what synchronicities you stacked up, what coincidences you saw, and get on with your day. But what's great about getting other people in on this is that with the more people focused on the same thing, I've heard it told, you're apt to generate better or greater results. So in any event, that's synchronicity for you. Get out there on your birthday. Try to stack up some synchronicities if you like, and see, taste, touch, feel, maybe intuit a little bit of the magic, and you understand why I brought it up for you before we get into the birthday read. But that having been said, synchronicity having been relayed, let's get on with the birthday read, all right? Your month is February. Your day is the 13th. Your sign is 23 to 25 degrees Aquarius, of the Aquarius III period specifically. And your quality and element is a fixed air. February 13th, the day of liveliness. All right, the energetic individuals born on February 13 are usually up for almost any stimulating circumstance, within reason. They seek out exciting events and themselves enjoy being in the spotlight. In fact, many born on this day qualify as outright exhibitionists. And those who do not seek the notice of a wider public may still command a great deal of attention in their family or social circle. And February 13 people tend to be emotionally demonstrative, wishing to share their feelings, whether joyful or melancholy. Volatile individuals, those born on this day, find it difficult to keep secrets or contain their thoughts for very long. And indeed, their frankness and emotional spontaneity can lead them in plenty of trouble, particularly in regard to matters of love. On February 13th, people generally believe in letting it all hang out, but sometimes do so in only one or two specific areas in their lives. In those particular areas, there is little chance of holding them back or bringing them into line. And their rational side is actually well developed, and their minds facile. But sometimes there is an apparent split between their brain and their body, their head and their heart. Thus, they can be quite disconnected, failing to apply the brakes to their feelings, or, on the other hand, bring some emotionality into their detached mode of thinking. Spirited, uninhibited behavior is not uncommon in many February 13th people, which for the most part is healthy and expressive. However, less evolved individuals born on this day can tend toward the violent or self-destructive side, or both, it says in parentheticals. And for all February 13th people, cultivating calm without being overly cool, learning to limit spontaneity without repressing it, and remembering that not everyone can stand up to their demands and criticism are crucial to their growth as human beings. They must also realize that by being so demonstrative, they might be inhibiting the people with whom they are involved, who probably wish to be more free-spirited themselves. And February 13th, people have to locate and remain in touch with their center and perhaps dig deeper into their complex personalities if they wish to move along in their personal development. They must work to better understand the thought processes of others and be more responsive to people's fears, needs, and wishes. And those born on this day sometimes make the mistake of expecting a kind of instant recognition when it comes to their interpersonal contacts. They may assume that others are as secure and trusting as they are when such may not be the case. Not at all. It is understandable that February 13th people wish that those they talk to or deal with intimately be on their wavelength. But they must not grow impatient or irritable when a block to understanding arises or when what seems perfectly obvious to them is not so clear to others. Well, all right. Pretty interesting birthday breakdown today. I would say it was a little bit hyper-focused on one particular area there. Just this kind of the schism between the personalities and kind of the ramifications of as much. But that said, it's kind of part and parcel for this period. We've been running into a lot of these hyper-focused, not too terribly well-rounded out birthday breakdowns. To say a well-rounded out entry in my mind is when they dive into the personal life, kind of like what you're like as family and friends. And they did that in no small part, but not necessarily directly so. They'll also sometimes mention like maybe what your childhood was like or what your parents are like, or as parents to a February 13th individual, for example, what they should do or how they should act towards their children. None of that in there, so in my mind, a little more hyper-focused on the personality itself. But I would say they rounded this out pretty well within that narrow scope. That having been said, I'd like to provide a little bit of commentary on what we went over today, things I found of interest, and maybe just kind of go over what was said. Also try to make connections with days previous or the period in general. So let's dive into it, all right? See what we see. February 13, the day of liveliness. You're energetic individuals, usually keen to take part in anything stimulating. You're also said to be on the search for events that captivate and enjoy being the center of attention. At least to the extent you may be considered exhibitionists at large and or within the more proximate social circle you have, not necessarily, society at large. As it happens, this energy may extend to being expressive and sharing your emotions with others, regardless the quality of being, fun, fancy-free, or melancholy, they said. So this wearing your heart on your sleeve, it may in fact cause you no uncertain amount of frustration too, they said. Having said that, the reading also claims this doesn't mean you aren't also rational individuals. But there is apparently a distinct schism between the two. So this can lend to being a rather disconnected individual, apparently. And while the reading seems to be doing a decent job of making this sound like a rather specific dynamic that only applies to you, it is in fact a quality where though it might not be as dramatically realized, this comes up as a personality trait for several other individuals in this period, to no small part. So I say that to say you're not alone in this regard, all right? Schisms in and of themselves, as it turns out, are also rather common in this period. Having said that, the reading takes a surprising, though perhaps not unrealistic, turn in relating how this expressive emotional energy can also turn violent or self-destructive, particularly for those lesser evolved individuals. And sometimes the reading will bring this up, the higher evolved, lesser evolved. I don't think they really mention the higher evolved in this case, but it's kind of interesting they'll bring up the lesser. That's something they've also been doing this period, just focusing on one specific aspect of something you think there's a little bit of a paradigm to, but they don't explore the whole paradigm. So, any event, this self-destruction they mentioned for the lesser evolved, it may not be one that's I'm too hard-pressed, or that anybody's too hard-pressed to naturally conclude. that if you're expressive emotionally, that may lend to bad results down the line. But considering how high tensions can run when emotions are in the mix, it makes a lot of sense that those things could present. And we'll see I have here leaning. So learning to limit such things without necessarily repressing them, tricky little dynamic there, is something that the reading recommends. Which I would say bears consideration for just about everybody. All right, we gotta let go of things, let things breathe, but and then maybe keep them to ourselves a little bit. But we can't do so in an unhealthy way, right? What else do we have here? This element is perhaps, this other element of you perhaps overshadowing others who themselves may wish to be in the spotlight. Pretty interesting dynamic in my mind to come up, and one that I hadn't necessarily thought of as we're going through the reading with our mind on this track of someone who's expressive and who's trying to captivate the audience, if you like. Hey, you know what? You got to be careful. There might be someone in your life who's trying to do the same thing, but you're taking all the attention from them. And now you might be breeding a little bit of animosity. A very interesting dynamic that I hadn't thought of. So something to consider there, I would say. But with that in mind, I'd say there's a certain captivating air that one can also project when a crowd is left wanting more. All right. So consider maybe not giving everything away. It might serve you in the long run. Leave people wanting more, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this has come up previously as things that have been particular dynamics with other individuals. So here you get a little bit of what you call a running theme here through Aquarius. But in no small part, I would say every particular zodiac period has 1 or 2 days that are kind of in the same vein. So some very otherwise profound considerations here, I would say, within your particular dynamic, within the breakdown, to make for a very interesting birthday. And I think it's made all the more valuable considering just how much of these things seem to rely on lending consideration to other people. All right, and a lot of times that doesn't come up. And here I think they did a little bit. So, like I said, not something that often comes up, but especially in such a specific way. But maybe it should. All right, I think that's an interesting thing there. So, in any event, that's what I'd say about your breakdown. A little bit disjointed. I skipped a couple lines. Pardon the bumping of the microphone there. Going off on a little bit of a tangent there, but hopefully we provide a little bit of value for you outside of everything that was already mentioned. So. That having been said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 13th of the month are ruled by the number 4, as 1 plus 3 equals 4, and by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you like to say it, which is both erratic and explosive. And the number 4 traditionally represents rebellion, idiosyncratic beliefs, and a desire to change the rules. And such characteristics are heightened in February 13th people because explosive Uranus also governs their sign Aquarius. And they must therefore control their temper and resist violent impulses while directing excess energy in a positive direction. And although the number 13 is considered unlucky by many people, it is rather a potent number, which carries the responsibility of using its power wisely or running the risk, here we go again, of self-destruction. All right. Hey, this was a not highly personalized numbers and planets entry, but they did personalize it for you a little bit. So they took the time to kind of change it up a little bit. It's not just a boilerplate number 4 entry. They also had to do so because they don't have a lot of these Uranus co-rulerships come into the dynamic there. That having been said, what I have to say about it, let's get back into the notes here. Number 4 in the explosive, erratic planet Uranus for traits of rebellion, idiosyncratic beliefs, a desire to change the rules, impulsive energies, and a quality of not necessarily doing things in a straightforward fashion. And they also mentioned rebellion, but they left a couple of them out, so I wanted to get them all in there for you since it's the dual rulership. All this to say, Uranus is also said to shake up and electrify any given planet that it comes into co-rulership with. And here there is no other planet. All right, so you get both barrels of its energy, all right, which in no small part probably speaks to the reason why there's such a dramatic schism with like the personality types there, with the rationality and the emotion. Interestingly enough, there's a couple other Uranus days here in the mix in this particular period, but they're all three are different so far. They're not all the same. So it's kind of interesting that you share those same planetary influences, but the days are remarkably different. That having been said, I would say there's a little bit of a through line in very specific, albeit different ways. So I just find it interesting that they can be realized differently because you think they'd be the same. But as they mentioned here, you got to be careful of the temper and violent impulses there that are recommended to be resisted, but not repressed. All right, lest you court that self-destruction that keeps coming up, and it also has been coming up in no small part through the rest of the period also. But here it might be a little bit more what do you call erratic, something that's popping up a little more often. That having been said, Uranus, like I said, it shakes up and electrifies the different planets it's in co-rulership with. They haven't said too much with regard to how it's realized with a dual rulership. And I was kind of excited when they dive into Uranus here to see what might manifest from it, because Uranus has such dramatic effects on other planets. So I was like, well, what's the dramatic effect when you get both barrels of the planet? And they really didn't say. It just kind of said that it further bolsters those energies, all right? So it makes you more volatile, I suppose. In any event, that's your numbers and planets. Hopefully we helped clear up a few things, provide some additional value for you. Before we dive in, with your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us and start dealing out the cards to inspire our every whim or flight of fancy. So let's dive into it, see what it has to say here. The tarot card. All right, the most misunderstood card in the tarot is the 13th card of the major arcana, Death. All right, which is rarely to be taken literally, but generally signifies a letting go of the past in order to grow beyond limitations, metamorphically. All right, that's all there is. This is one of the sparsest entries for the tarot card that I've come across, if not the sparsest. So let's see if I could pick up a little bit of the slack here for you. The Death card, a once-a-month card, and it's said to signify letting go of the past in order to grow beyond limitations, all right? For one of, if not the sparsest relation of info to draw from for a tarot card, all right? And I said this for the Wheel of Fortune the other day, as it turned out, but I forgot all about the Death card. The Moon card also comes up rather sparse, so I don't know why they don't add in a little bit more in these particular circumstances. Sometimes you get ones that have quite a bit going on for them, and they'll append a little bit of a button that's specific to the day. But not here. Not here for whatever reason. And they've got the room to do so. That having been said, it's obvious that, letting go of the past or anything in general is obviously beneficial to folks. But all too difficult to apply as often as it's said. It's really always, it comes up so much to let things go that it only really comes off as a platitude at a certain point. Kind of like the dentist recommending you floss, all right? We do it a couple times and we're like, man, we have to keep doing this. We have to keep letting things go. I don't know, it's kind of a process, I would say, especially something as dramatic as letting go of the past. We're so hinged to it. So it's interesting, it's something to come up here and think about. But again, a process to be sure. I don't know how apt this card is. Most times we're able to make some connotations of the card with the birthday breakdown. But here I would think we have to really read between the lines and start trying to take the idea, not letting change happen and moving past things, kind of cram it into what we've read in the birthday breakdown. And I wasn't really able to do that as I was looking at it. But that said, it might be something to be said for this dynamic between, or that schism there of rationality versus emotional. Like, what are we willing to maybe let go to help synthesize the two and, get over our issues, our quabbles, or the self-destructive natures that come into there. What do we have to let go to deal with that? Maybe it can just serve as a reminder to think about as much and be mindful. I can't really say, there just wasn't enough said to really get into the weeds and try to append it to the day or find something necessarily profound with it. But that having been said, it's still interesting to dive in and see what we drew, which card we picked up. And you got the most interesting, albeit, what do you call it, mysterious one, because there was nothing really said. So anyhow, that's been your tarot. I know we didn't really impart much value, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But that having been said, let's move on to your health. All right, they definitely have a little bit more here, so let's get into it here. Those born on February 13th may be accident prone and must resist any urge to court injury with dangerous physical activities. Particularly at risk is the lower half of the body. And learning to remain calm in trying circumstances and not to react impulsively helps a great deal. Therefore, all centering activities such as yoga, meditation, and Tai Chi are highly recommended. The February 13th diet often tends to the extravagant, but it is best if those born on this day can tone things down a bit by restricting sugar and stimulants, butter and cream, and excessive meat. And February 13th people are usually highly sexually oriented and must mind that ebb and flow of their sex life does not play a disproportionate role in their love relationships or become a focus of concern. As far as exercise and sports are concerned, only moderate activity is recommended for those born on February 13. All right, a lot more was said here for you today. A particularly interesting health breakdown, as it turns out. It kind of deviated from the normal, line that they've been putting out for the Aquarius period. So let's get into it here. He says you're accident prone, and so you must resist the urge to court injury from dangerous activity. Rather interesting, as this has to be one of the most unique entries of the period in that it's just totally different from when this usually comes up. This is usually only said as or applied to the adventure-seeking Mercury individuals. Quick of mind and mental process there. But they did say that you seek out exciting events, so maybe that's why they bring it up. Otherwise, it's seemingly anomalous for a Uranus day. They said to find centering and mindful activities, ostensibly to cultivate calm. You might have a little bit of stressful, personality aspects baked into your behavior because of this tumultuous or explosive Uranus energy. Who's to say? So maybe that's why they recommend calming activities. So an interesting change that you actually get definite food recommendations or definitive food recommendations. In this period alone, I think it's the most examples of them not being very specific about food. So you're one of the anomalies where they actually say, hey, these are the things you need to avoid. The butter and the cream, the excessive meat intake. But I think this might come in no small part because one of the body areas is the circulatory system for Aquarius folks. And while they haven't really said as much, outside of they recommended cutting out red meat for one other individual, what came up for Capricorns in their body area was the veins, was to cut out dairy fats and animal fats, ostensibly so they could cut down on cholesterol. Don't want to be clogging up them arteries. Here, I would say heart health is a big issue also. And they also said to cut down on stimulants, again, I would think for your heart. Also, they said the lower extremities. The other body area for Aquarius is the lower legs and specifically the ankles. I've been bringing up that folks should throw on some compression socks and ostensibly head off both at the pass because with you specifically, what's also come up is in the Aquarius period, if you like, is the risk of stroke or embolism. So them compression socks will help you with those and protect your legs in the process for added support. Any event, this is also a little bit of an anomaly. They brought up that you should be careful that you're not obsessive about your sexual activities there, all right? And this hasn't come up all too often, but it's not necessarily an anomaly for the Aquarius period. It has been coming up more often than a lot of the other periods. But it's been a little bit of a, they haven't really drilled down on it like they did here with their particular mention of as much. And there must be some historical precedents because they said that some folks are apt to let it kind of influence their love relationships. And so you don't want that to get out of hand or be the sole focus. But it's probably apt that we're in the bedroom for that reason here alone. All right? Pretty interesting. What else did they have to say? So don't let the sexual aspect define a relationship. They mentioned moderate exercise, which is a rather common recommendation for the Aquarius period here. But there's no real context for why they bring that up. And I can only think that maybe too much or too little will either aggravate or come into some kind of conflict with your erratic Uranus nature. Because a lot of the times when the exercise comes up, there seems to be a direct correlation with the kind of energy that the planets impart. And sometimes there's like a direct contrast. They try to bring it down if you got that high energy. But other times it seems like, specifically say with like the Mars period, which has like an aggressive God of War-like energy, they get a vigorous or combative sports kind of recommendations. And so I can only think it's to help you excise that kind of energy. But here, if you're explosive and erratic, you would think you get that. Not the case, apparently, but who's to say why? So, moderate to light exercise, all right? That having been said, that's been your health, so let's move on to some advice. All right, let me get the book centered back here for you. Observe yourself living, okay? Remain in contact with the feelings and opinions of others. Cultivate greater willpower and self-control. Natural behavior is generally admirable, but not always pleasing to others or appropriate for a given situation. All right, hey, I thought this was pretty valuable advice and apt as well. So let's get into what I had to say about what they had to say. All right. Bear with me, my writing is tiny. I had to put it in the book here. They said, what do they have here? Observe yourself living. Okay, so be objective. Maybe step outside yourself. Assess, where you are and with your impulses and where you can maybe pull back and where you can push forward. What else do we have here? And then where you can adjust. All right, that's right. So be objective, and that's a running theme throughout the book at large. I said remain in contact with the feelings of others. So maybe don't overshadow those individuals who are also trying to grab a little bit of the spotlight. You don't want to be taking all the limelight. And doing so, you may be lessening your power and your impact as well. We came up with that one there, didn't we? Or covered it anyway. They said cultivate willpower and greater self-control. I'd say that's great advice for anybody, but if emotions run high and can lend to tension or turn into self-destructive tendencies, well then boom, perfect advice. That's a kind of like a come to Jesus moment here, I would say, for sure. Okay, so avoid even needing to have said moment. Do the work to figure those things out. They said being yourself is endearing, but not always advisable. All right, consider the fart in church, as I wrote here. Let's see, the loud laugh generating variety versus the silent crowd clearing. All right. Mixed results to be sure, but neither is necessarily appropriate given the circumstance, albeit it's generally necessary. All right. So I don't know if that's an apt way of putting it, but I feel as though there may be some kind of baked in wisdom in there somewhere, if you like. So in any event, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. All right, it's your birthday. You get a meditation. Okay, here we go. The quietest place to be found rests inside a peaceful soul. All right. I like that one, but I don't necessarily know how. Well, I think maybe I do know how it applies to you. Once again, the quietest place to be found rests inside a peaceful soul. All right. Your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to throw my spin on why I think they put it in the book here for you. It would kind of defeat the purpose of it being a meditation, right? Something for you to reflect upon. But that having been said, there's your meditation. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up the objective mirror, see where you got the bulk, if you like, and where you're otherwise a little more deflated or atrophied, perhaps, within the metaphor. All right, your strengths. You're spontaneous. You're outgoing. And you're energetic. All right. But your weaknesses. Oh, let's hold that objective mirror back up, but flip it to the side to say blows up your face. Shows off the things you otherwise maybe a little more superficially insecure about. That's right, your weaknesses. Oh, here we go. You're impulsive, you're reckless, and you're distracted. Oh, interesting. But not necessarily news. I would say those are all elements that we had baked in to the breakdown. All right. A lot of times we get into these strengths and weaknesses. I like to kind of think about the idea that our weaknesses can also be strengths, just depending upon, well, the situation and the individual. There was one week, or one set of days rather, about a month ago, where the word impulsive came up, right? You got it here as a weakness, but for that other individual, it was a strength. And then the very next day, the next individual, it was a weakness. And so I was like, well, where's the, it's funny, it was impulse. Here we go. But it's funny, it is funny, it was impulse. I said that. What am I trying to say here? In any event, the whole idea was like, why is there a disconnect between the individual with whom it's a weakness, but the day before it was a strength? So that got me thinking like, well, maybe it's just the individual and the circumstance. So I think there's an argument to be had that either way, your weaknesses can sometimes be strengths, vice versa. I also like to argue that our weaknesses are going to help us improve our strengths. You're spontaneous, outgoing, and energetic. I would say you're going to rally yourself to rise to the occasion, to overcome your weaknesses if there's something you think need improved. Your weakness is impulsive, reckless, and distracted. I would say those all are kind of baked into the same thing there to some extent. But you know what? There may be a situation where you need to have that kind of reckless abandon, all right? Maybe there's just some kind of, some task that needs done. And it's something that they need someone who's not going to think about it too much, who's just going to dive right in and get it done. Because if there's too much thinking going on, there may be a little bit of hesitation, and maybe it's one of those high-stress situations where any kind of hesitation might come to calamity. All right, so I would say that's a strength in those regards. Very isolated circumstance, but a strength nonetheless. So in any event, that's kind of the argument there, that our strengths can be weaknesses, vice versa. Well, or weaknesses can be strengths more aptly. But that having been said, I think you're going to be able to get over those weaknesses if you want to improve upon them with your strengths specifically. But all that being said, I also like to argue, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether, all right? Because not only do they make up a part of who you are, but you might be able to use them later. That's right. So in any event, a little bit disjointed there because I had a little interruption. But hey, you know what? It happens with these one-shot, one-takes. So let's move on to those born on this day. That's right. And when we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, but what I like to do is look at it from the perspective of figuring out our passions. Because all too often I get out in the world and I meet folks, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times they don't. But I think it's imperative that we have, say, a purpose or something to shoot or strive after in this life to make life more fulfilling. Because, sometimes I think folks just get into a job just so that they can make ends meet. And at the very root of it, there's nothing for them to, get something out of outside of a little bit of cash to fill up the coffers there. And while that's great and all helps life go on, but at the end of the day, what are we doing all this for? So I think it's important we have a purpose, something to strive for. So let's look at it from that perspective. Not only we get to see who shares your birthday, but maybe we can drum up some inspiration to advance our own lives by their example. That's right. So let's get into it here. We have George Simeon, a French mystery writer, and Commissioner Magritte police novels, one of the most prolific and widely published 20th century authors. George Simeon. All right, we also have Chuck Yeager, the U.S. astronaut and test pilot. We also have William Shockley, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, transistor inventor, and an electronics genius. We also have Fyodor Chalapian, a Russian operatic self-taught concert basso. We have Aung San, a Burmese national movement leader. We also have Dorothy Di Frazzo, a countess, and it says Roaring Twenties Hollywood socialite. It says Bugsy Siegel's girlfriend and courted Gary Cooper as well as Cary Grant. We also have Konstantin Gavras, Greek-French film director, famous for Z and Missing. We also have Kim Novak, the film actress, George Segal, the film actor and musician, Oliver Reed, the British film actor, Stockard Channing, the film actress. Picking up on a bit of a theme here. All right. Peter Gabriel. There we go. Peter Gabriel, the British singer, guitarist, and composer. We also have Tennessee Ernie Ford, the country gospel singer, TV host, and a personality. We also have Patty Berg, the golf champion, and 15 major tournament wins, and 3-time AP Female Athlete of the Year. We also have Leopold Godowski, a pianist and a transcriber. We also have Bess Truman, First Lady, and it says assisted husband in edited speeches. All right, I like it when they're not necessarily defined by whom they married, because that often seems to be the case. All right. We also have Carol Lindley, a film actress, Eileen Farrell, concert and opera singer. We also have Jean-Jacques Servan Schreiber, a French journalist and a publisher, and Grant Wood, the painter of American Gothic. That's right. The guy with the pitchfork there, right? Pitchfork rather. I'm assuming that's American Gothic. So that's been those born on this day. I know I butchered a few names there. I'm getting all out of sorts here trying to be entertaining. There's maybe why not to be entertaining all the time. So I want to do some butchering on my side of things, not trying to muck up their names. It's just hooked on phonics doesn't always work for me with the names there. It's not the most useful tool in that regard. But that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is winter, your sign is Aquarius, of the Aquarius III period specifically, and your quality and elements is fixed air. And what does that mean? Well, it's a different video altogether. I'll leave at the end there if you're interested. And I know there's a bit of a hard ask, tall order to, take inspiration from other people's birthdays and what they accomplished. But I think it's very important that we're striving after something that we find fulfilling. All right. So if anything, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear about it, help you start stirring up the fires of your own inspiration to start getting after it. But if you've already got your own passions, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you in that regard. But once again, if I can wish for anything on your birthday, it's just striving after it. With that said, this has been February 13th, the day of Liveliness, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you want to get through it on your own time there and maybe not have to listen to some other guy drone on about it. Hey, it's there down there for you if you're interested, right above a personal little message I leave for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents, if you're interested in that as well. With that having been said, the book having been relayed, that's not altogether what's all too important right here. Because like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. That's what's important. So once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else that joined us, I just want to say thanks for joining us. I hope you found something of interest here and that you join us for your birthday reading. That's right. But lest I forget, that's right, your daily numbers, all right? Get out there, let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Drum up some synchronicities, some themes if you like. See, taste, touch, smell, hear, intuit a little bit of the magic, and you understand why I brought it up. So if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, in addition to chasing after your passion, it's that you're seeing some magic out there, having some fun on your birthday. Maybe something otherwise otherworldly, if you like, all right? And it says you like to chase exciting events. I know that probably doesn't sound too exciting, but if you happen to see any of it, hey, you know what? You'll understand why I brought it up. So that having been said, once again, that's your birthday reading. I want to say thank you for the pleasure of your time. It's been a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you. I know I was a bit mumble-mouthed. Hopefully you took some entertainment out of it, seeing me struggle, if you like. So in any event, once again, happy birthday. Get yourself some compression socks so you can take care of yourself and get out there after all those adventures, all right? But don't self-destruct. All right, that was the theme of the day, it seemed. The unspoken theme of the day. Happy birthday. Take care.